those are things that Tom Toole, by the way, could never think of. He couldn't even imagine some of the stuff that we spoke about in this podcast. Those are the things the knowledge brokers, you guys want to be doing. If you are a real estate agent, attorney, lender, title rep, anybody who deals in housing, you're in the right place. It's the Knowledge Brokers podcast. It's why we do this show every single week. And that was my attempt at my best Tom Toole right there, who is still on vacation. I think it's the first Knowledge Brokers pod Tom Toole is going to miss. So we'll be back to his normal intros next week, but I'm joined by Lisa Chinati. She's back from her trip to Dallas last week. How was Dallas?
Hot as balls.
Nice. Hot. Yeah, it's in the triple digits there, right?
It was, yeah, and it felt even hotter. I'll spare everybody the commentary of what I was walking around Dallas saying, but
I was supposed to golf if I went on that trip with TF on that Friday, and as I'm looking at the temperature, I'm kind of glad that didn't happen.
I don't know how anybody golfs in that. Like, legit, I don't know how anybody does anything
it's that bad. Well, glad to have you back. We've got a lot to unpack here on today's pod, and we'll start with the inventory numbers. Obviously, we've got inventory. We've got a interest rate that peaked out this week. So we want to talk about how should knowledge brokers be educating clients, consumers, what advice should they be giving in that environment. It's a little bit different than where we thought we'd be. And we've got some jobs reports. So let's start with the inventory. Active inventory grew by 5,848 for the week. Sounds like we're heading in the right direction, Lisa, but the same week a year ago, we went up over 30,000 on the active inventory list. So for the first time of the year, inventory year over year is in the negatives. Last year was an all-time low for inventory. And so now we've actually crossed into the negatives. This time of year, you would expect inventory to jump 20, 30, 40,000 nationwide on the active inventory count. So only to eke out, almost 5,900 homes on the active inventory total is not good. Context here, according to Housing Wire, active listings for the week in 2015 were almost 1.2 million. We're at 465,000. I expect this to continue throughout the summer. I don't expect a shift here. Lisa, what's your thoughts on the inventory?
Yeah, so it's interesting. When that report came out, I actually went back and looked at our Massachusetts inventory, and we've been running for the past couple of months 1,500 to 1,800 new listings a week, right? I think we've been kind of talking about that. A low week would be 1,200, 1,300. We're at 879 this week. That's bananas. Like, it's not sustainable, right? I think part of what I'm kind of questioning, could be wrong, is July 4th falling in the middle of a week. Could have had impact, right? It wasn't a weekend.
This is the week prior. This date is the last week of June.
Oh, yeah. Wait. Okay, never mind. So undo. Well, so then it's about to get even worse because this week we were only 879 new listings. I didn't look at last week's, but it's interesting because looking at this week's data would imply that next week's is going to be equally as bad, ironically. Did you pull Connecticut?
I haven't. I can try to pull it real quick, but I would expect similar because we're just, most towns are, it's just not even possible, to not be competing, certainly in average price points. So your point about the holiday, I would expect this week to be worse, right? Or not great information when we see the read on Monday, Tuesday of next week. But maybe we'll see people getting out of the holiday and we'll see a huge burst the following week. That could happen. You come out of the holiday and you play catch up a little bit because these numbers are so low. They're dramatically low.
Yeah, I could see that. I was just texting with somebody else and we were chatting. We signed, it was interesting. This week was the highest number of listings that we've signed in a single week so far this year. It's still an insanely low number, compared to years prior. It was also interesting looking at the split of what we signed this week. We signed more rental listings and more sale listings, both in the same week than we've ever signed. And we don't do a ton of rentals, but we actually signed 3 single-family rentals and 2 condo rentals, which weren't historically rental units being turned over to re-rentals.
That's interesting. They weren't historically a rental,
dynamic.
and now they're going rental.
Correct. 4 out of the 5 hadn't been tenanted in the past. 1 had been
Wow.
tenanted in the past for the prior 12 months, but not
Now
before
we've seen
that.
in the last couple of years a 25% increase in rental prices. Um, we're now seeing year over year that's basically flat. You haven't had any gains here. I know in in Boston you have, okay, but I'm just talking across the country on the macro. And it's
Correct.
interesting, first time, uh, you know, landlords. Basically, you're talking about 4 out of 5 first time landlords. Now, I'm sure your agents did have this conversation. I want all agents to have the conversation. If it's a first time landlord, depending on the part of the country that you're operating in, we're going to see a lot more apartment inventory. So you're going to have a lot more competition. Okay, so if you're a 2 or a 3 family, uh, I mean, and you're competing against one of these big, beautiful, brand new developments where they've got
Mhm.
amenities and they've got a property manager who's not just some dude, living 35 minutes away, the homeowner. These are advantages for the new development. Okay. And so I've
100%.
talked to that, owner of the advantage of going to the market and cashing out what they could potentially do with that money. Um, because being a landlord, people underestimate how hard that is. And you don't want to just like talk to a homeowner like I'm trying to get a sale. I've got personal experience in that and how hard it is. So I would share my personal experience. But Lisa, how about for the agent who doesn't have personal experience in being a landlord, but is trying to educate the homeowner on how hard it's going to be to do that job, a part time job as a landlord, um, without trying to seem like they're talking them out of it for a commission?
Well, interesting. We have actually been talking about that quite a bit this past week, unbeknownst to us with the rentals that we signed. Looking at, I think that that's a big part of the conversations that's going to be coming up, right? The folks who want to retain their 2 or 3% interest rate and think that it's an easy way to start becoming an investor. One of the strategies that we chatted about was coming up with truly like, so we all use net sheets when we're presenting as proceed sheets, right? When we're talking to a seller about how much money they're going to potentially walk away with after they sell their property. And so we had brainstormed going through. I think one of the things that a lot of homeowners, when they haven't been professional landlords, underestimate is the annual expenses of maintaining a rental property. It's not just paying the mortgage payment and the insurances and the taxes that are all a part of that. And I think one of the things that agents should be super keenly aware of is being able to educate those homeowners on all of the expenses: landscaping, snow removal in the Northeast where it snows, water bills, sewer bills, wear and tear. They all have expenses and keeping a slush fund. What happens when the hot water heater dies or whatever, right? It's not just the dealing with the situation, but the cost of
Yeah.
handling
And
the
the
issue.
big education point for homeowners who are looking to become, I'm going to go and rent this property out, potentially first time landlords, is you've got to be the landlord. Okay, I don't care what your mortgage rate is. I don't care what the rent, is going to, what kind of rent you're going to get for the property in whatever market. On when we're talking about a single family unit, a 2 family, a 4 family, there's not enough margin for you to hire an actual property
Nope.
manager because a lot of them, they'll ask agents, can you get me a property manager for my single family? I don't want to deal with it, but I want to rent it out. I want to get cash flow. Well, you're not going to have cash flow if I got to put a real professional property manager on that property. A real professional property manager who's not going to steal from you. And I'm not talking about literally stealing, but think about it. They're going to steal time from you because they're not going to put any time into a single family unit. Because what are you paying them? You're paying them 20% of the rent. So you're paying them, say it's $2,000, you're paying them 400 bucks. For 400 bucks, what are you gonna get that person to do every month? Nothing. They're not even gonna go to the property. So you can't put a property manager on these properties. You've got to self manage it and you've got to be active. You've got to live within a half hour. So if you want to self manage, if you're going to live within a 30-minute radius, if you're going to visit the property once a week, whether that means you're cutting the grass or you're checking in on things, You got to water the plant for it to behave the way you want it to. And if you're not willing to do all that, then you should just sell it, move on, take the cash, and do something else. And that's my advice. I would rather see somebody take their cash, buy in a destination area where they've got property managers that do the whole thing for you, whether it's a ski house. Hey, you like to ski? Block off your 2 weeks and let those property managers up there kind of do it. But if it's just in a regular area, finding a property manager is not going to work for you.
Agreed. Agreed.
Anything else on inventory? Listen. Ultimately, we're not going to see inventory go up with the environment that we're in. And the 30-year fixed just hit the high mark for 2023 yesterday. I don't know where it'll hit today because we're taping this before it comes out, but it hit 7.22 yesterday. The high mark for 2022 is 7.37. That's Mortgage News Daily's daily report. Also this week, you had the weekly survey from Freddie Mac jump up um, a full tenth of a point there from 671 last week to 681 on the weekly 30-year fixed. So we're in a high environment right now, again, for 30-year fixed mortgages at a time when there were forecasters saying it was going to be going down. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case for some time. Doesn't look like it'll be the case at any point between now and June 25th, June 26th, when the FOMC meet again, the way the investors are reacting to the 10-year. So this is going to continue to lock up inventory. It's really hard for a buyer who was looking for this whole entire year at 6.5 to now get comfortable at 7.25. Some of them are just quitting. We saw the mortgage applications drop 4.5% over the last week. So
Yeah.
you've got some of them quitting. You got some people that want to sell but don't have to sell and aren't willing to sell at plus 7%. Um, Builders right now are saying, Lisa, that if they buy the rate down to 5.5%, a lot of demand. That's like the golden number right now. People will get out of their 3% mortgage rate for the new house if they're faced with 5.5%, but they're not going to do it at 7% if they don't have to.
If you want to be the knowledge broker in your marketplace, you need BAMX. It is a curated community of on-demand courses like the world-renowned Tom Toole, me, him, the best objection handler in the country, showing you how to handle seller and buyer objections on a consistent basis. Canva courses, how to design your own marketing so you can appeal to people on social media through email and look like a professional. And you get a private community with other like-minded folks like you that want to make their business better. Use the code Knowledge Brokers for 10% off. Get BAMX now. Do yourself a favor and go outwork and out educate your competition.
Correct. I think we've been hearing that for a while, right? I think it's what were the numbers? I think when we were looking at it, even just this jump, right, for a homeowner taking out a $400,000 mortgage, it rose to 2720 from 2636 in just a week. So it rose about $100 just by the small change that happened in the past week. That's a big jump.
It's a huge jump. So what should knowledge brokers be doing in this environment? Should they just be, widening the database and talking to people that have to move, death, divorce, diamonds, diplomas, these types of home buyers and sellers that have to make a move? Or, is there another opportunity for knowledge brokers to help people move in this environment? Or is the market truly locked up?
Yes, yes, no, but yes at the same time, right? I think the critical thing is the same thing that we've been talking about probably since the past year, right? It's doing all of the things and understanding that this kind of market and this kind of economy requires hard work. It requires doing the things that are uncomfortable. It requires doing more than we did in 2021 and the first half of 2022. And it's going to require creativity. So, yes, we should be widening our databases. We should be thinking outside the box. I think it's the time to double down on marketing. I also think it's the time to take some risk with marketing.
Well, tell me
I think
about
it's the time
what
to
kind of risk
say,
should we be taking?
well, I think it's, kind of looking at what isn't being done right now. I was talking to somebody else the other night and I said, you know what I love, Byron? I love failing. Because if I always win, I know I didn't play big enough. I didn't think big enough, because I think when you're this in this environment, people are going to win big or they're going to lose, right? They may lose small, they may lose big, whatever. But I think that there's a massive opportunity to win big, but you're only going to win big when you take risks and think big and think bigger. I'd look at some of the marketing strategies that have kind of fallen maybe out of favor over the past couple of years that might be coming back into favor. I think one of the things to kind of look at social media marketing in different kind of ways. I think looking at your database a lot more old school. I think looking at Google again and kind of experimenting with some stuff there. I know, I think you said it, threads. I think you are kind of thinking
No,
threads
no,
might
no,
be a
no,
place
no.
for
I'm not
some
saying Threads
real
is not a
estate.
place. I do not. I think no. I can comment on Threads. I don't think it's a place to pick up consumers. I actually put out a thread yesterday. Yesterday was a fun-filled day on Threads.
It was going so fast. I don't know how everybody keeps up with all this social media. I accidentally enabled notifications and I wear an Apple Watch and I feel like a dog with an electric shock collar all day long. It's
I put
vibrating.
out no, no, no. So Jimmy Mackin, CEO of Curator, he put out a thread that believes this could be a huge opportunity for agents because Twitter is mostly media, people who want real-time news, obviously political stuff, and that's kind of the audience for Twitter. So because Instagram and Facebook have made it so easy to convert your profile on those platforms, basically Instagram, directly into Thread. It was the easiest social media platform ever to sign up for. Your username carried over from Instagram. So
That was
yeah, so
factual.
they had 30
Yes.
million users in 24 hours. So it was really easy. And so Jimmy Mackin's take was that this could be big for agents based on the amount of consumers that could use the platform. Now, we'll see how this plays out. How many consumers stick to the platform? Is this going to be IGTV, which doesn't exist anymore, Instagram TV, or is this going to be, Instagram Reels, which obviously is a big part of the platform when they rip that off of TikTok? My take is that I don't think your consumer is on here right now. I just don't. I mean, maybe it's just my algorithm. I'm seeing more industry type people on here, so it might be an opportunity for. Now, I don't think you should ignore it. I think you should get on because the opportunity to land grab right now on followers is significant. And as this thing plays out over the next 30 days, I'd be tasting it for a little bit each day, because if there is an opportunity to do that, you're going to want to jump in. But there's no DM, at least on Instagram or Facebook. If you see somebody that's in the middle of a move or has a question about, you can DM them, and you can get into setting an appointment. You can't do that on Thread, so it's all going to be public facing. I saw somebody put out a thread of their open house. It had no engagement. I'm like, it's just not going to be the place to promote the open house. Okay, but going back to some of the things that you're talking about, I think that these listings are such a rare commodity that I would do everything I possibly can to create marketing around the listing. I would get, you're talking about social, I'd be getting behind the scene video and photos while the photo shoot is going on at the property. Okay. So I'd be taking, coming soon clips and running an ad on that without property address, without any information, just literally coming soon of maybe the best feature and maybe you in there. And maybe you just run the ad to your DM, right? So like that's the only option, is like learn more, and it goes directly into your DM to start conversations. I'd be running ads and content on social around the coming soon. I'd be
That's a and see, that's kind of what I mean. That's an
Yeah,
old one. How long, like, think back, like 2017, 2018, it was all those coming soons, no address. You have to connect with us in some fashion to get the information. But I
just
think we stopped
because they're going to
doing
say,
it.
"Hey Lisa, where are you? What town is that?" They're just going to start
Right.
asking conversation. Well, this is going to go on the market on Friday. It's in such and such town. I can't give you the address yet. What other towns are you looking in? Right now, you're going to have that
100%.
conversation. So I would do that. I'd also do a great listing tour video. I want to have up to 10 or more, maybe probably 10 minimum different stories that I'm telling for each listing. So it's the coming soon video clip, it's the coming soon photo, it's the listing tour video, it's the floor plans that I might leak out a couple days prior. It's the open house. How am I telling the story about the open house? What am I doing around the open house? Am I doing flyers because it's walkable downtown? All these different things that you can do around one listing can generate so many more conversations. It's how you will attract more listings by how you show off your listing. Don't
I
don't
agree
go
with you.
autopilot knowing I know the house is going to sell in 72 hours. Got it. But when you go autopilot and collect one check, you're going to miss out on maybe 2 to 4 other potential listings or buyer checks that you could have had by having you can generate 100 conversations off of one listing. You can do you can
Without a
do that
doubt.
quite easily in this market.
Without a
This
doubt.
isn't I was talking to my father, yesterday, and we went out to dinner and we were just talking about like because he used to actually help me set up Lisa back in the day for open houses like 2012, 13, 14. Um, he'd run some signs for me because I was putting up like 20 signs. Because if you remember in those days, we would get one person at an open house for 2 hours, literally one, one person.
Oh,
And I'd
yeah.
set up
You know
20
what's funny?
signs.
Well, so interesting. Again, thinking outside the box marketing, kind of just what you tied into. I met buyers this past weekend. Don't do that very often, but did it.
Wow.
It was a referral from an agent in Arizona, and I had the opportunity to chat with the buyers. And I said, "How'd you end up selecting your agent?" And they said, well, the biggest thing was he had put out in a neighborhood group that he would set up all of the garage sale signs if we were going to host a garage sale. Well, when a consumer's doing a garage sale, what are they typically thinking about? Getting their house ready to sell, right? And so he posted 50 garage sale signs all through the neighborhood, no cost, didn't charge them anything. Him and his kids went out, put up these 50 sale for like garage sale signs. And the consumer said, we knew if he was going to work that hard without charging us anything, that he was going to work even harder to sell our home. Right. So that just reminded me of that. Stupid little things that I think we got away from.
That's interesting. You know what I like about that? If you have a platform locally on YouTube that's gaining traction, or you've got a good Instagram page, or you have a local radio show. We have a local radio show in our market. Whatever you have that has a local audience, you may want to. I might actually take this. You may want to put out there to the public. If you have a yard sale coming up, send it to us. We'll promote it for you, right? Like we'll do some promotion for you. And now you're getting people. Hey, I've got a yard sale coming up in 2 weeks. If it becomes a thing for you, um, that might be a benefit, right? If you can be the central location. Lisa, you remember because you grew up Northeast. What was that radio show where the old guys would call in and they'd be like, "I've got a lawnmower. It's been in my backyard for 2 years. Runs great. I would, I,
I
I'll
know
take
what one you're talking about.
$50 or best offer for it. Call XYZ number." Remember that? They just run it all day on
Yeah, I
Sunday.
do.
Like if you can become the
Yep.
new age version of that for people getting rid of stuff, again, it's just conversations in the community.
100%. Yeah. I was reading, don't remember what I was reading. I was reading a book. Don't remember which one. I've got a couple going. And it was interesting because it was kind of talking about how classified sections were what fed newspapers for the longest time, right? And then Craigslist came along and disrupted classified sections. So that whole thing kind of died. And it's interesting because I think Craigslist is kind of dying through some of this stuff, right? Like
Facebook Market.
Facebook yard sales site. Yeah. It'll be interesting. I think the next one is there. It's
So getting
waiting.
creative on things that put you in the position to have a lot of conversations. I mean, that's what I'm finding more and more is
Right.
the agents that are really successful. If you look at their phone log, if you look at their text message log, it's high volume every day, day in and day out. If you're not up for that grind, if you're not up for that challenge, I don't care, Lisa, I don't know how many ISAs you have, but right now, but you've got an ISA team. I've got an ISA team. I don't care how big your ISA team is. I don't care if you're tapping into, a third party ISA team. If you, as the sales agent, still are not matching that volume of calls, you're going to be on the struggle bus. It's not going to happen for you. And
Agreed.
so that's been proven out that the really good agents are going to be text messaging and conversation machines, and it's only going to lean in that direction more as we get into AI and the whole, you know, evolution of how we're doing transaction coordination and listing coordination and all this kind of stuff, and the role of the agent. It's only going to lean into that more, where it's about the consultative, educational approach, and it's all conversations. It's what the knowledge broker is today and is going to be even more of in the future.
I agree with
Yep.
you.
All right, Lisa, jobs. What does that tell you about the economy? So we got the FOMC meeting July 25th, July 26th. Yesterday, we had two different jobs reports this week. Yesterday's was explosive. Today's wasn't as bad. Okay, so yesterday's, let me pull it up here, if I can. I went into my Connecticut data real quick. So update on that, Lisa. New listings and inventory were both down in June in comparison to May. So time of year when it
Okay.
usually goes up, both were down. Okay, so jobs. U.S. companies added nearly 500,000 jobs, most in over a year. That was yesterday's report. It was 497,000. The estimate, by the way, was in the 200,000s. So that was just crazy jump. A lot of that coming in leisure and hospitality, 232,000 jobs. That's the monthly change in private payrolls. That makes sense as we get into the summer. Now, non-farm payrolls, which came out today, increased 209,000 in June. That was below the consensus of 240,000. Unemployment rate was 3.6%, down 0.1 percentage point. A more encompassing jobless level rose to 6.9%. Okay, so government hiring led the job gains, no surprise there, followed by healthcare, social assistance, and construction. Wages rose 4.4% from a year ago, slightly higher than expectations. Fed really wants to see wages not grow. It's only slightly higher than expectations. They don't want to see that jump out of control because that'll put more money into the system. What's your take on how robust the economy has been reacting?
Well, I think the other point was retail fell,
Yeah,
right? Retail shrunk a little bit, which is interesting because I think hopefully that's a good sign that spending is kind of decreasing on some of the what's the word I'm looking for? Not necessary stuff, right? I think we're seeing some of that stuff start to pull back, which is always a positive. Leisure was surprising to me, not gonna lie.
travel.
Although travel's super
I
high.
think they're
Yeah, I
if you're
get it.
talking about these June particularly, that could be to me gearing up staffing for July, August, September, October into the holidays where you've got, travel and holidays and stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm hopeful that it kind of continues some of the downward momentum. It'll definitely be interesting to see what happens with rates. I know that they had been kind of predicting that they would continue the increase.
87% was the last
Like,
one I saw. Investors have priced into the
right.
market.
Yep. So I don't know. It's still, I feel like there's not enough, again, stability. There's not enough ability to really kind of really predict even. I won't be surprised no matter what it goes, where it goes, how it all reacts. It could go either way. And I would be like, I can see why that happened.
Mark Zandi put out a tweet just in the last a tweet, Lisa, not a thread, by the way. Okay, so Twitter is still a useful tool. I'll still use Twitter quite a bit because I can get a lot of real-time news. Mark Zandi, economist, wage growth was a bit stronger than hoped for when looked at through the Fed's prism of quelling inflation, but just a bit. Year-over-year average hourly earnings growth is 4.4%, well below the near 6% peak last spring, but the Fed wants closer to 3.5%. The trend lines look good. Okay, so it doesn't mean that they're going to skip or pause whatever they call it here on the next FOMC meeting, the end of July. You saw yesterday the Dallas Fed President Lori Logan, I think her name is, say that she is an
Okay.
advocate for increasing. She's one of the 12 members. She wants to increase on this end of July meeting. Wants to get back to the rate hikes. She also said that housing inflation scares her. That she does not want to see housing inflation run away again. And so they want to keep those mortgage rates above 7. I think that's the Fed's goal, which will lock up a little bit. But some of the things that you and I talked about, those are things that Tom Toole, by the way, could never think of. He couldn't even imagine some of the stuff that we spoke about in this podcast. Those are the things the knowledge brokers, you guys want to be doing. I think we'll have Tom back next week. We'll get some tips from him. He's washing up somewhere on Jersey Shore. So if you're in Jersey Shore this weekend, look on the lookout
Every
for Tom
definition
Toole.
of washing up.
He's all washed out. All right, Lisa, you got a hard stop. I got a hard stop.
I got a bail.
This is a pleasure. It's a great show. Probably the best of all time here without Mr. Toole.